The scene is set within the office of the Paragon Odyssey 15, better known as the Venture Elysium, the Odyssey Theatre. Prince Stanhope sits at his desk and starts working his mundane aspects of kindred society, following up on his work to increase his influence within the police force. He has in front of him three names who he has previously investigated and is going to follow up on such. The first is an Adam Dustin. Adam Dustin is the super cop lieutenant, pointed out by Mr. Dunson, who John found very little on last time. Simply, he was an unwavering man who believed in the law, and a family man at that, seemingly a pillar of society within New Sarum. The next would be Will Gerard. Will Gerard was the older officer of the police, relegated to the DMV, the evidence lockers, and the paperwork trail, put within the basement of the police department, forgotten, due to his careless actions in crossing blades with a member of the political elite of New Sarum for something as minor as tax evasion. And finally, Joseph Voyen, the homicide detective, the gruff and surly officer, obsessed with the Black Rose killer, whose insidious ambition has set about his path to self-destruction as his vices are about to catch up with him. First, John realizes that Officer Dustin, his record is immaculate. Whether this is a true statement of the man's character or whether it's being artificially shined for him is something that John is unsure of. But from his previous forays into the man's life, he realizes it will be a dead end. So he decides to do a different route, this time trying to find more his wife, a Jane Dustin, a surveyor by trade and a rather career-driven woman. John will roll his manipulation and contacts to see if he can rustle up some information on the man's wife. DC7 for contacts, of course. Unfortunately, this is a failure. It seems, although there is plenty on the young woman, nothing sordid comes up. Nothing that John can use. Simply her record, her very simple, if successful, life. The amount of children they have, the school she went to, the education she got. Nothing that can be pulled. Another dead end. Well, Mr. Dustin seems to be a challenge. John always does enjoy a challenge. He will leave that until the next time when his contacts arrive to him to be able to bend the man to his will, one way or another. However, the other two seem to be a lot easier to deal with. Next will be Will Gerard. It's time to investigate exactly what put him in such bad states with his higher-ups. Why was he relegated to the basement? And so John will start learning about Michael Harvey, the politician who he went head-to-head with, who made sure that he would not rise a hand against him again. Rolling contacts again. Same roll. Much better. Well, John compiles quite a lot of evidence against this Michael Harvey, this Republican, a spokesperson, in fact, a very advocate member of the backbenches of New Sarum politics. Certainly a man with a lot of opinions, and those opinions, well, don't match up to the man's actions. Not only his tax evasion part of his crimes, but a veritable other embarrassing things. With 3 successes, I gained 3 pieces of information. The piece of information I will glean from this particular role, as it's so goddamn good. So Mr. Harvey is charming. Exceedingly charming, but very poor at covering his trail. He likes extravagance, very much so. He has put a lot of the public funds into his own personal enjoyment, including fast cars, nights at various illicit houses. Nothing that he would like to be brought to light. Second piece of information, while tracking his paper trail, is that he makes frequent trips to a rather seedy little hotel just out of the highway of New Sarum, in between Portland and New Sarum, in fact, a little motel, nothing extravagant. Why would he be going out there, John wonders, constantly, at least twice in as many months, very regular as clockwork. And then, perchance, John has the idea of timing this, sending out one of his own agents to basically keep an eye, and he could not believe what he found. A buy-off. A buy-off with a rather interesting-looking man. A large suitcase full of money from a Hispanic gentleman in torn clothes, and the smell of marijuana drifting through the air. John had enough evidence on this Michael Harvey to, well, ruin his career, in fact. And now he has to wonder which one he wants to favour. Will he do Mr. Gerard a favour by ruining Mr. Harvey's reputation, solidifying his position in the police, or should he approach Mr. Harvey himself, get a little slice of the action within the political scene? Who knows? Time will tell. And so John goes through another avenue. Beforehand, he found out that poor Mr. Gerard has a heart condition. His medical bills for such a thing is astronomical, and he relies very much on his police pension and a good retirement. So John will roll his influence within the finance district to see if he can rustle up the bank statements of Mr. Gerard to see how bad it is, how much has he saved away, and could he survive it on his own? Is there any extra income that's being put in, perhaps? Or perhaps some money can be put into his account to incriminate him more. Yes, yes. Actually, I quite like that idea. And so John is going to use his influence and manipulation. It's only one with finance, to see if he can place an unprecedented amount of money, something quite large, but not large enough to cause suspicion. About 10 grand, maybe. Depending. In fact, I should be fair on this and roll my contacts first to see if I can actually find out about this. Which I can. Excellent. With 2 successes, I gain the information of the finance. And now with my influence, I will see if I can put a rather large and unexplained amount of money within his bank account. Where did it come from? Well, with John's financial credit company and many offshore accounts, he will be able to make it look quite anonymous and very incriminating. enough to get him thrown off the force, a dishonourable discharge, and him in John's pocket. Let's see how I do first. I could completely flub this. Damn. Unfortunately, it's not possible. The man's accounts are quite tight, and in fact he banks with various different people. His credit card bills alone means that it is more difficult. And he first anticipated to do such a move. You'll have to think of another avenue. A good idea, though, perhaps one for the back burner. Well, next will be Joseph Vollier. Now, Joseph Vollier, the homicide detective, is a sordid little man with sordid little secrets. So it is time to see if we can send our contacts to find out which illicit houses he prefers in the red light district, so we may place our agents there. With a whopping 3 10s. As much as I'd like to use my specialty, I shouldn't. Not only do we know exactly which illicit house, we have actually been able to uncover some of his favourites. Oh yes, this will be very easy indeed. And so, with little effort, John will make sure that every sordid little detail will be put onto camera and photograph. It's very simple. So, how will he do it? He knows exactly where he is going to be. So he sends his agents. Alfred will do. The man is quite adept at blending in. And we'll see how well Mr. Alfred does. Apologies, I wasn't thinking I'd need Alfred today. Wrong ghoul. There we are. Not that he'll need enough. He hasn't got any stealth. I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Oh well. What I'll do is I'll simply do a simple wits roll for both Alfred and Jeffrey to see if they can get some outside shots. So Alfred. Apologies, Jeffrey. Alfred's got 2 wits. Well, Jeffrey gets some rather interesting pictures indeed. Enough that will certainly be incriminating. And Alfred. Even Alfred has some. So, good old amount of pictures, even though they don't have any stealth. Fantastic. And now John will drive to the red light district. Go and visit some of these ladies, in disguise, of course. John is, well, it's very simple to find John stands up. It's very difficult for him to disguise himself. He has done it before. He simply goes out in modern dress, loses the spectacles, in which, with Auspex, he does not need, and stands upright, no longer using the cane. And perhaps even for a bit of flair, we'll put some temporary dark dye into his hair. It'll wash out in the morning, being kindred and all. And he will approach some of these particular ladies of the night. And while he seems like an honest man and pays his way very happily, he simply looks into their eyes and gives them a very simple command. Every time Joseph comes into your establishment, you are to write exactly what he says, exactly what he does, and post it into this mailing, this secure box. And for that, I will roll my mesmerize. I forgot I've actually upped my leadership, so it's actually more dice. These particular young ladies, I don't think have very high will, so let's be generous and give them 4. And within chanting voice, we'll make it DC 2. Four successes on the first lady. And 6 successes on the second. I'm not going to do for every single one, but I will describe in various detail, using Forgetful Mind, what exactly happened within the appointment. John has absolutely no interest in feeding, nor taking any of the services of these young ladies. And so, to make things a little easier, he will describe in immaculate detail exactly what happened, not to make himself stand out from the crowd. In fact, quite the opposite, someone utterly forgettable who simply uses them and goes, tips and leaves. Forgetful Mind, which will be manipulation and empathy, I believe. I should double check that, because I suspect, good old admins will correct me either way. I haven't used this in a while, so forgive me. Tra-la-la. Here we are. Forgetful Mind. Wit Subterfuge. Oh, good lord. Despite the evil ones, I succeed on the first lady. And 3 successes. I'm not using Enchanting Voice because I don't think that counts for Forgetful Mind. And 3 successes on the second lady. Enough to cover his tracks. If not, he pays well, and he will be being ferried information by these young ladies. Perhaps, in time, he might condition them and use them for his own resources, but at the moment he has very specific plans in mind. To recap, Adam Dustin, the Supercock Lieutenant. John has hit 2 brick walls and has not been able to find any further information on the gentleman. Perhaps a more direct approach is required. 2. Will Gerard. I was unsuccessful in being able to plant fake money into his account. However, I have been able to get his financial records, know exactly how much debt he is in, and have dug up a vast trail of blackmail for his rival, the politician Michael Harvey. And finally, Joseph Valliere, the homicide detective. I have many incriminating photographs of him in the red light district, and have dominated his particular favorite madames of the night to ferry any and all information on the gentleman that he lets slip. And there we will end the scene.